Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis, and this is an extra video from Locked On Ole Miss, and I'm joined by Pratt Rogers, and we're going to talk about all the commitments that Ole Miss has been getting. We're going to be talking about Mercer and all that stuff. Honestly, I'm just excited that it's game week, Pratt.
Steven, my man, me too. I mean, when you say all the commitments, I mean, we're really not missing out right now. It's exciting. It fall is in the air, football is in the air, a lot of anticipation, and kind of just a great week as a whole.
Yeah, honestly, it's a really great week. It all started with the addition of five-star Kamarion Franklin, who Ole Miss absolutely needed that. We interviewed Brian Smith from there. It's like, that's a player that Lane Kiffin has to get. He was a must-get player. And you know me, Pratt, I'm much more low-key about recruiting than that. But Brian was all about that. And then you get Noreel White, who's basically a wide receiver that was made in a lab to run the Lane Kiffin spread offense from the slot position. And then yesterday, Trevor Jaxson, who a lot of people are saying is one of the surprise quarterbacks of this year's class. He has a chance to go to the Under Armour All-American game, in my opinion. And he is as high as ninth in the country by ESPN.
Wow, I didn't see really that. Yeah, I didn't see he was that high on ESPN. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a testament to him and an eye for talent. That's great.
Yeah, and we look at it, ESPN and Under Armour, they're kind of married. They are what they are. That whole thing is being broadcast on ESPN. And Trevor Jaxson being from Winter Garden, which those who do not know is a suburb of Orlando where the Under Armour game is. And if he's ninth in the country to begin with, you have to imagine that the Under Armour is going to have him in that game.
For sure. No, I completely agree. The only con, I think, of him maybe not getting the look, Steven, would be just probably hasn't had a ton of varsity experience is kind of what I've read a little bit. I think he had like 17 touchdowns last year, maybe, under double-digit interceptions. I can't remember the exact number, but he hasn't, from my understanding, been the guy like the last 2 to 3 years has kind of been my understanding. I think he's kind of emerging on the scene and growing into his role as a starting quarterback. And I think somebody that Kiffin could absolutely mold into 3-year starter in Ole Miss.
On Monday's show, I did the whole first segment of the show is how Jaxson Dart is the best SEC quarterback. He is the best quarterback in the SEC. Now, me telling you that, you know nothing about that. What is your first thought there?
My thought is, it's a very viable opinion, and it's because one of two things. One, I think he's an extremely talented quarterback, but two, there's really not a whole lot of returning quarterbacks. You got Will Rogers, who feels as if he's 30 years old, and I'd take Dart over Will Rogers for Mississippi State 10 out of 10 times. And, outside that, there's not a lot of kind of seniority, so to speak, of really high-end QB play in the SEC this year, at least in my opinion. Georgia, Bama, Auburn, they've got some question marks at quarterback, I feel like, and I think that kind of gives rise to Jaxson Dart being able to be in that kind of elite conversation.
Yeah, and if you look at it, I'm like, the two top quarterbacks in the SEC, in my opinion, is Devin Leary at Kentucky. Love Devin Leary. Jaxson Dart. And then in the next tier is where the Jaden Daniels and the KJ Jeffersons are. I think Carson Beck, if you wanted the other quarterback that had a chance to get that tops tier, I think he's the one that has a chance to get up there. But he's in show me mode, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like it's been talked about ad nauseum for, that Saban went after their spring game and didn't feel ultra confident about their quarterback scenario, went and got a transfer to come in after watching the spring game doesn't give you the warm and fuzzies about the quarterback position on your team. So, I mean, I get that. And I feel as if Dart's kind of been there and proving it. And, I think it's a narrative that everybody believes in Oxford that as the season went on, Dart got better and better. We've talked about it on the show, and I think optimism is high for Dart, and there's no reason for somebody to come in and have a negative attitude towards that at all, towards that take at all.
So we'll change subjects here for just a second. It's game week. It's Mercer week. There's actually going to be an Ole Miss football game played within the next 5 days in Oxford. And what do you know about the Mercer Bears?
Very little. I did watch a few of the highlights from the Northern Alabama game. And the first thing that kind of stood out to me, Steve, first off, before we even dive into any of this, if we don't win 45-0 or something close to that, it's a problem. But being the college football addicts that we are, I did kind of look a little bit into some of the Mercer highlights, and it's hard to gauge how fast a team is when they're playing another team of equal slowness in North Alabama. But one thing I did kind of notice is I felt like Mercer had trouble on defense kind of protecting the edge, and North Alabama was able to kind of run like almost like a long toss and kind of break the edge and to house it, something like that. So I expect Judkins to have a day. I watched their running back have a touchdown. His named Micah Bell. And I saw their punt returner have a really good, I think his name was Devron Harper, but I watched him kind of take that opening kickoff back 50 yards or so. Awesome spin move, kind of juked one guy. So, what is that? What does that tell you, though, Steven? I mean, what does that tell you if he's faster than everybody else on the field? Does that mean he's slower than everybody else on our team? I mean, I guess that's kind of the question that is hard to determine from watching the game on TV.
When it comes from skill players, I don't know if you can play that because there's a ton of 4-5 football players. It isn't the fact that you're 4-5 that makes you fast when it comes to college football. It's other things. I think Devron Harper, the return man, he is the NFL prospect on their roster. Phil Steele rated him as the top FCS punt returner out there for the NFL draft. He's a good player. Their offense it struggled against North Alabama.
I saw that too. There's nothing impressive from that, I didn't think.
Yeah, and North Alabama was not good last year. I mean, they changed coaches and all this. And now I'm not an aficionado of North Alabama football. I'm just not. I'm just going off what they said on the broadcast. But they changed coaches. They changed systems. They changed a whole bunch of stuff. And at the end of the day, it was a 17-7 win by Mercer. Mercer is ranked in the FCS poll. I think you come out of that game and you're like, how are they ranked even 22nd? I honestly expected more out of Mercer, if that sounds weird.
I felt the exact same way. I expected him, not to light it up against Northern Alabama, but, hang 28, 31, something like that, and win by 2 or 3 touchdowns. I don't know, something like that. I was just expecting more oomph, for lack of a better term, and, man, I did not feel that. So I just hope we don't come out flat on Saturday. Don't think we will. I think we're going to be hyped up and, like I said, hopefully win by 100. But they're literally nothing scared me about this team, which is a terrible, knock on wood, terrible thing to say. But, I didn't have any qualms about playing Mercer on Saturday at all.
Well, before we get out of here, they put pictures online of the mock game. And in the mock game, for those who don't know, it's everything about the football game but the football game. It's all about operational substitution patterns, all of that stuff. But they wear a game uniform to do it. The news and the reason I'm telling you that is Cedric Johnson is still wearing number 2 and has the patch on his jersey of the 38. So he is not going to wear yeah, he's not going to be wearing the 38 this year. It'll be just the 38 patch.
So does that mean that they like retired the jersey in itself?
It's the only way you can wear that jersey is if you get selected to wear it, but it's your choice at that point to actually wear the number.
Wow. Okay. So, I always thought it was kind of once you get selected for the number that it was the honor of getting to wear the number 38, and that came with you physically wearing the jersey. I don't think I actually knew that it didn't entail that you were kind of quote unquote required to wear the jersey, to be honest.
It kind of goes back and forth. For instance, like when Billy Brewer and Tommy Tuberville was the coach and do that, whenever you won the award, you got selected, you changed your number to number 38.
Yep. That's kind of what I always thought. Yeah.
But once Ed Orgeron was at Ole Miss, and this was when I was there, like Patrick Willis won the Chucky Mullins Award. But Patrick Willis never wore anything but 49. He had the 38 patch on his jersey. So Ed Orgeron and Lane Kiffin, they're the ones with the patch and had that idea, and everybody else was been all jersey and all in.
Wow. Okay. Wow. I never knew that. And I swear I thought some games we just had like the forgive my ignorance on it, but I thought we had like a Chucky Mullins dedicated game sometimes where everybody would wear like a little patch or something of 38. Am I completely making that up? I feel like that happened when I was in college.
Yeah, it happened one time against Vanderbilt. It was the 20th or 30th anniversary. It was in
maybe that's what it was.
It was in 2014 is when it was. It was the 25th anniversary of the Chucky Mullins injury, and it was against Vanderbilt. And the whole thing was they came out in warm-ups, and they all wore 38 on their helmets.
Maybe that's what it was.
And then whenever they went into the locker room and came back out, they were wearing the powder blue helmets. And that was when they got debuted.
Okay. All right. Okay. This is starting to make a little more sense now.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Maybe you were in the college haze of going to a football game.
That is probably a very fair assessment. If my mom's listening, maybe not. But anyway, yeah, that's fair.
All right. So Mercer's coming in this weekend. Give me a prediction of the game. Tell me what to expect.
I do think we win by. I mean, I don't know I don't even think there's a spread on the game.
It'll be a no-line game.
I mean, I'd guess we win by 42. I expect the score to be maybe seriously 52-10, something like that. Maybe 52-17, somewhere in there. And, I think the big thing you look for in that game is how do you utilize Spencer Sanders? I mean, I don't foresee him getting first snap. I don't foresee him having a ton of meaningful time. But how do you utilize Sanders? That's going to be a big question mark for me. How do you utilize Trigg? Big question mark. So those are kind of things I think you get to feel out first game of the season.
So if it's 35-0 at halftime, who goes in at quarterback after Dart?
I have no clue. I have truly no clue. I mean, I know if it was me, I would put in probably Walker Howard, honestly, and go from there. But I don't make those decisions. I'd have packages for Sanders throughout the entire second half of that game if it's 35-0. From the third quarter on, I'd probably rotate him in and out with Howard. But, I mean, I doubt you're going to be throwing the ball a whole lot in the second half anyway if you're up 35-0. So maybe it's a futile effort. I don't know.
Yeah, I want to see Austin Simmons too.
I do too. Yeah, I do too. I mean, not to pick favorites, but probably more than Sanders. I'm just kind of curious how that is implemented. So I'm sure they got some cool run packages. I think it'd be really cool if we implemented like some sort of option for Sanders. I doubt that happens, like a true option dynamic.
We have what I call the Lane Kiffin triple option play that is ran.
I did not know we have the Lane Kiffin triple option
have the
play. Tell me about the Lane Kiffin triple option play.
The Lane Kiffin triple option play. The first option is a jet sweep to where you can give it to the runner on the jet sweep, or you can go to the second option. The second option is an inside zone to a running back. So fake the jet sweep, give it to Quinshon Judkins. If not, you can pull it and the quarterback keeps the ball around the end.
Have you seen this in practice? Is that a play that you've seen? Okay, cool.
Yes, I have
not seen that. That's awesome.
He ran that all the way back at FAU, and I think we've run it 1 or 2 times at Ole Miss. We couldn't run it last year because they couldn't snap the ball.
Fair. Also, a notation, things to pay attention to during the Mercer game. Can we snap the ball? Things like that.
Yes, absolutely. And if you're looking for goals, it's not the end of the world if it doesn't happen, but I want to see Mercer score less than 10 points.
Yeah, me too. I've read a few snippets on the practice report today from Saturday. I read it today from Saturday. And it definitely made the defense. I mean, I think they were the 1s and 2s were going against the scout team primarily on Saturday, but it made it feel as if it was kind of a dominant performance, which was kind of encouraging. I felt like I think you kind of need that bolster defensively.
You got to be careful not to take too much from a mock game. As somebody that was out there and had to go through the mock, I hated going through mock games. It was absolutely terrible. It was the most boring thing that you could absolutely imagine. But the whole purpose of them is the operational stuff, the substitution. Make sure the special teams, like on 3rd and 5, the special teams knows where to line up so that you don't get out there and have 10 men on the field or 12 men on the field.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And it's important. It's a Pete Carroll thing. That's what they did at USC. That's what Ed Orgeron did when he was here. Lane Kiffin has brought that same thing over. But, I mean, the good news about it is you don't see operational problems from Ole Miss. They generally know what they're doing. So we'll see exactly how that goes. But I don't think you should take, like, a hardcore stuff, like the football stuff, from a mock game. I think you can.
That's very fair.
Yeah, you can.
Very fair.
You can take who's in the game and things like that, but you can't really take like performance based, if that makes sense.
No, I completely see that side of it. It's just I think everybody craves so much for we're so close that everybody is just trying to pick up every nugget about how this team could be this year, and that's what we all live and breathe, Yeah.
Hey, that's the reason I'm here. That's the reason I do what I do.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC. Chris Sorty does a fantastic job there as well. Lots of great stuff from them. Everydayers after Pratt Rogers, we've got the voice of the Mercer Bears going to be on the show. We've got Tom Vanderford, and we've got a pre- and post-game show Saturday as well that we are going to live stream. So tune in for that. This is the last week of open enrollment to sign up for the Discord server. Understand, handle that as well. If you have any questions about that, if it's expired, hit me up with a DM, and I will let you in as well. So for Pratt Rogers, I'm Stephen Willis. We'll see you next time. Hotty toddy.
See you, man.
Later on.